So from Amanda Knox to O.J. Simpson, Kyle Rittenhouse, we just got some new insight into some of the biggest trials of our time thanks to a new bestseller, Justice in the Age of Judgement. Covers major court cases and the role of the media and social media. And this morning, the book's co-author, attorney Anne Bremner, is here in studio. Our old friend, it is good to have you back.
It's great to be with you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Well, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
You said you wrote this with your little brother.
I say little brother, but yeah. That's what we called him when we were growing up. But he's a professor at Emory in medical school, and he used to be at Yale. And he's a great writer. And he majored in English and at UPS right here. And he's a real talent.
And why did you write it?
You know, I had worked on the Amanda Knox case for so long,
yeah.
And that was the first kind of international social media case, and first internet case. And so I thought maybe I should write about that at some point. And then I wrote about it, and I thought, you know, there's so many other cases like hers where we've had that kind of influence. It would make an interesting book. And then my brother was interested, and so then we put that together, and this is what we have.
So talk about how Amanda Knox and that case was really the beginning of this digital age that we're in the midst of now, because it's really changed everything.
Completely.
And it continues to change.
Yeah, and hers was, you know, cartwheels and kisses and pizza and kind of, those were the things that we saw all over the internet, and that basically that she was called a she-devil, and everybody was seeing things, you know, on their media, social media pages, but chat rooms, and then comments on articles, and it just exponentially was discussed. And the conclusion was, and its confirmation bias, was that she was guilty in the beginning, when in fact, in the end, after all of this was tried in a courtroom, she was exonerated.
Yeah, well, I think so many of us in America were getting a little different sense. We're like, what is going on with the Italian justice system?
I know, right.
This is insane. Is there a real danger of, you know, trying cases through social media? I mean, we're seeing so much information, disinformation, misinformation out there through social media now. I can imagine that, you know, from a legal perspective, it's a real slippery slope.
It's very dangerous. And I just finished defending Sheriff Troyer, and that was an example down in Pierce County where there was a lot on social media. And so a lawyer has to basically say, I need to try this a little on social media. I need to watch the social media. I would need to watch the media and make sure that I'm addressing that in front of a jury. Because you know what? We're all human. You know, we all see these things and we form conclusions. They also say 80% of jurors make up their minds in opening statements, and they never change because they filter the evidence through their opinion. And so you have to combat that as a lawyer. And finally, when you're defending someone in court, you need to save them in court, but you need to save their reputation for the future.
Right. So, you know, Richard Rotter is on trial right now for the killing of Everett police officer Dan Rocha. And it's interesting, too, because they're saying we can't get a fair trial in this county. And maybe so, but can anybody get a fair trial with the state of the media and the opinions that are flying around all over the place?
Well, that's a great question. And I think that, is it a venue anymore? No, the venue is everywhere, isn't it? Because it's on the internet. And so the question is whether or not we can make sure we have safeguards in a courtroom, make sure, for, like the Idaho case, the judge has basically put a gag order on the lawyers. That's a good idea. You know, seal search warrants. We have a right to know as the public, but the accused has a right to a fair trial and not to have saturation of information and potentially misinformation out there before a trial.
So the O.J. Simpson case, we had sequestered jury for like a year or something. It was ridiculous. But in that era, I mean, they could go to a room, not watch television in theory, but now, I mean, what do you couldn't sequester a jury like that now in this digital age, could you?
No, and the thing is, remember the Shepard versus Maxwell, the fugitive case? That case was reversed based on adverse publicity pre-trial back in the 60s. What about now? We'll have to look at those tests now as we look at the Idaho case, even the Murdoch case recently in South Carolina, of just saturation in social media and condemnation of somebody pre-trial.
Okay, let's talk about that Idaho murder case. The suspect, Brian Coburger, charged in the murders of the 4 college students in Idaho, and it's been covered everywhere, you know, television, social media. Everybody's been talking about this because it is just so shocking. I mean, how would you begin to approach a trial with a suspect like that?
Well, I think that the judge has done a very good job so far, at least, of saying gag order, like I said. But you've got to make sure that things don't get disseminated before the trial, that they're going to taint the things that will not be admissible, I guess I should say. Now, we know a lot of this will be admissible. There's appears to be a lot of evidence against him.
Yeah.
And it's a death penalty case in Idaho, so there'll be more scrutiny on that case. So all you can do as a judge is have these safeguards and make sure the lawyers aren't making extrajudicial statements that affect his right to a fair trial. Because the question isn't, is it public? The question is whether it was completely unfair publicity that tainted the verdict. And we'll have to see in this case, because there's been a lot of publicity. It's a whole different era.
Oh, it sure
when I
is.
started practicing law, it was not like this. And so I'm trying to catch up, too, in terms of how do you deal with that in a case.
I mean, in the media, we're dealing with the exact same thing. It is a whole new world. Our friend, author, and attorney Anne Bremner here this morning. Thank you so much. The name of the book, once again, it is Justice in the Age of Judgement. I got a copy. This is great. It's going to be a great read. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you, as always.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, let's...